Hello and welcome back to Total War Warhammer Multiplayer and my Road to the World Championship series. Today I've got a quick best of 3 for you. I played this against a player called J-Flash. He was a really good sport. They were really good fun games and hopefully I took something away from them and learned a little bit. I did play 3 different armies this time, as you'll see, and I did actually record these without commentary as I played them so I could concentrate on the games and see if that made a bit of a difference. So it's a little bit different style to the first video. Let me know if you prefer this or the first video, or if there's still other things that I can improve. I'm definitely still learning when it comes to trying to cast Warhammer games like this. But let's get straight into it with the first game. Okay, here we are at the start of game 1. I'm playing as the Tomb Kings against J-Flash's Orcs and Goblins. As you can see, I have Grand Hierophant Khatep as my liege lord. He's riding his Casket of Souls for some early bombardments and some magic damage. And then I have 2 Necrotects for my big Sphinx to look after that. 2 Shabti bows and a couple of units of archers, and then some skeletons and tomb guard frontline with a unit of horsemen just to hopefully do some chasing off and running down of these orcs as they run away. Just scanning through the orcs here, he's got Biggins, boys, Wurzag is his lord, and the Arachnarok Queen. And really early on he's made a very big mistake, which I'm going to capitalize on by throwing his Arachnarok Queen out in front like that. My Ushabti bows do great damage against something like that. I just ward him off a little bit with the Sphinx. He's not sure if he wants that engagement, but he's already in range of the bows here. You can see them firing in there and taking really big chunks of damage. And I then bring the second bows in, just move them across as well. Hierophant Khatep just doing some damage in there to the big guns and the boys in the front ranks. But the Arachnarok already down to half hit points, and I start moving the spears up because it is going to come in and charge regardless. So I start moving the spears and Sphinx over to counter that. But as you can see, it's already breaking, and there we go. We've broken it almost immediately with the Ushabti bows. On the right hand side, my archers just putting a few pot shots in, and then I move the tomb guard up just to take that charge in the middle and hold the front. Meanwhile, Khatep still just doing his thing. I do completely forget that he has magic in this battle, which is rather unfortunate for me. I don't think I cast a single spell with him all game. I do use the bound spells from the Necrotect properly, so that's at least something. And we see the orcs have now engaged in the front line, and unfortunately for him, he does just engage straight on those black orcs coming through the middle. But I start focusing fire down on his archers as well. And I played this front line fairly well. He over-engages. He could have run those Black Orcs straight through the middle at my Lord and done some fairly good damage, I would have thought, and got into my Ushabti bows there. But he doesn't. He is trying to focus down Khatep with those archers, but I've already got 2 archers firing on his one, so they chase them off. I get my swords in the flank of his front line. I did forget about my cavalry on the right hand side, so they get wiped out unfortunately. As usual, if it's not on my main screen, somehow I've forgotten about it. And then here we have the Necrotect just doing some healing on the Sphinx as it takes on 3 units. And again, forgetting to use Khatep to heal up some of these skeletons in the front rank. And the Arachnarok has come back. I'm going to refocus these Ushabti bows and try and just pick that out of there. A little bit dangerous firing kind of through my own Sphinx, but we will take that down. Wurzag has been focused down by the other Ushabti bows at this point, so he's out and is now being just chased down by that Necrotect on a chariot, so that's an easy chase down for that. Definitely played that quite well. Got his lord. We've broken his front rank here apart from these black orcs. He does have boys and big uns coming in on the right hand side, so my archers there are going to get caught. He's taken out the skeletons on my right hand side. Again, completely forgetting to drop any heals on them from Katep, which is definitely not great. But I do have these Shabti bows, and while... Oh, I did cast a spell. There we go. I think that's going to be a sandstorm. Yeah, so I dropped a vortex on them, and that does some nice damage. It unfortunately goes slightly the wrong way. Oh, is it stationary? I don't know. Didn't do... He did outpace it a little bit. So my Sphinx is doing fine. I'm going to bring the other Necrotect across here to give him some more healing, keep the Sphinx healthy. And then in the middle here you see his Black Orcs rout as I summon the Ushabti. I finally got to my army summons, dropped the Ushabti into this mess that he was bringing into my back line, and I'm then focusing the other Ushabti and the bows. Katep makes it out fine, he doesn't get caught up or engaged, and then I'm just going to start cycle charging a little bit with the Necrotech chariots as well, just trying to break this block of 3 orcs, big uns and boys. See if I can get them at the back. You see his units have rallied a little bit, but he is without a lord now, so he's got lower leadership across the board, and that is army losses for the orcs. So we win that one. And the units in front, I used my Shabti bowmen, who got great value out of them, nearly 4,000 value across the 2 units. The Sphinx did pretty well. He held up a lot of units in front of him. But really, him sending out the Arachnarok and leaving Wurzag vulnerable just gave me that victory, made it very easy for me to chase him off the board. Okay, here we are for game 2. My opponent is playing Skaven. I am still very unsure how to deal with Skaven, and I think picking Wood Elves into it was probably a mistake. I'm not sure how I should have picked this army. I've gone with 3 units of basic Glade Guard to try and outrange him, 2 units of Deepwood Scouts, and a unit of Way Watchers to see if I can't pick off any characters and block units. I do have the Sisters on Gwendolor. They're going to be scouting out ahead for me here, and I discover that he has massed Skaven slaves and weapons teams, and with 3 units of Dryads and 2 units of Wild Riders with shields, I did hope that I could get into the back lines, but I was very unsure how to play this. I do have a Life Mage and a Waystalker as well. Again, I was expecting a character to need to snipe, along with Gutter Runners and things like that. We do discover some Gutter Runners, I think, here on the flanks, but he has run straight into 2 units of Deepwood Scouts in the trees, and so they're gonna poke him down pretty quickly. I choose to run my cavalry round the right flank here in the hopes of catching these and just wiping them out, but that's not going to work out. The Skaven are just too quick, and my cavalry are not the fastest. I would have needed maybe Glade Riders for that. Here we can see I start moving up into range. He's got a unit of Warlock Jezzails up there that are... There we go. So he's got his Jezzails and Rattling teams up there. Putting some early damage into those Skaven slaves. It really isn't doing much for me, and you see my Dryads were just going to get whittled down by these, so I'm going to try and take my cavalry up there instead, in the hopes of then getting round into his back lines. He's gonna sit on this hill at this point and make me come to him. And he's got a big poison wind mortar at the back, which is going to do massive damage to my Dryads. Obviously, just one volley of that thing has just taken nearly half hit points off, and now the Rattling guns open up as well, and those Dryads just get mulched. The back, we're going to see if we can get my Wild Riders into those 2 units of Gutter Runners to take them out. We have managed to get the other Dryads here into the slaves. That's an easy fight for the Dryads. They should chew through them, but it's just going to take time. And he does get his second unit in the back of my Dryad. So they've got a lot to deal with. Out on the left flank, he has this Brood Horror. I send the sisters in to see if they can't just pick that off, but they just don't do damage fast enough against an entity like that. I needed my Way Watchers over there for dealing with that. As you can see, I do eventually get into these gutter runners with the cavalry, and they do some decent damage. Not a huge amount on the charge, but they do start to work. My Waystalker is going to move up and try and get on the hill. And then on the top of the hill, my other cavalry here is trying its hardest to get into the back line. But it's taken a lot of damage to get there from the gutter runners and everything else. These Dryads have managed to get into the Skaven Slaves, but they're outnumbered, and now there's a Brood Horror in there as well. My cavalry then gets Warp Lightninged, which is a hard hit, and they didn't even manage to break the Poison Wind Mortars, unfortunately, so that wasn't great. The other cavalry finally breaks those gutter runners, and I'm going to now throw them in, see if I can't break these slaves, and again try and get into this back line. Meanwhile, he has 2 units of Rattling Gunners on the hill, just opening up, murdering my Dryads, and in the back you can see his units are rallying. So eventually the sisters go across, and they're going to try and take out some of those units that have rallied. Bringing my Dryads and my Deepwood Scouts up now to try and counter this. I have broken another unit of slaves, but again, these are only slaves. So my cavalry now gets back into this this Poisoned Wind Mortar. Meanwhile, I'm going to go melee with the sisters and get them into these Rattling Guns, but they do so much damage to them. So they're down by hit points already. Finally got the Way Watchers and people into range. Balance of power at this point is just edging towards him. So he's got an advantage, and I really haven't done anything about his Lord or at all yet. So he's coming over the hill on his Doom Flayer, and my Waystalker is going to get caught. I have got the Dryads there as well. You see another Warp Lightning Cannon. I had no idea where his mage was the entire fight. I completely had no idea where he was, and couldn't do anything about him. So I did finally catch him on the top of the hill with the Dryads, but that's a fight that they're not going to win, and my Waystalker is also not there. Gwendolyn and the sisters getting into the back lines at last. They're going to try and take out some of that stuff, but as you can see, his units, as Skaven do, they've all run off, and now they're all rallying in the back. Meanwhile, he's just inflicted huge losses. My Dryads are now nowhere to be seen. We get another Warp Lightning down here, finishing those Dryads off. They're going to flee the battlefield. And then we've got 2 units of Rattling Guns just destroy my sisters while I wasn't watching. Close range Rattlings from the side, and the Regiment of Renown Rattlings on the hill just annihilate my Lord. At which point this game is all but done. I have nothing now really that can cope with his Lord. My mage is stuck out in the open. My Waystalker does rally, but we're going to lose people all over the place, and this game is all but done. Try and get a few more bits and pieces in. We do have some stuff coming back. We might be able to get onto that unit on the hill, but remember he also has things in that backfield there that I just can't see at this point because I have no units with line of sight to it. My Life Mage is broken and is sitting all alone. I'm still trying to put some damage into that Lord of his with my Way Watchers. They've done a little bit to him, but it's not going to be nearly enough, and he's just going to chase all these off eventually. On the hill, everyone's going to get caught, and he's got a unit of his gutter runners there have come back. And while I'm going to still trying to get to those Poison Wind Mortars that are still doing their thing, It was a fun build from him, very, very Skaven. He had all these Skaven slaves to bog things down and just didn't care about shooting into his own units. So we can see there he's got 5 units of sword Skaven slaves, 4 units of spear Skaven slaves, then that's 3 units of rattling guns, one of which is the Regiment of Renown, a unit of Jezzails, the Poison Wind mortars, Wartlock cannons, the horror, and 2 units of gutter runners. So it's a very Skaven-y build. All his money is in those weapons teams, and I just couldn't get to them without getting absolutely destroyed. So good game to him, and moving on to the finale in the best of 3 at 1-1. Alright folks, here we are, game 3, everything on the line. I will say this, I did make a slight mistake when selecting this army. I meant to have 4 units of Wolf Rider archers, and I ended up with 4 units of basic Wolf Riders. Just completely misselected in the choose an army screen. Other than that, I have Grom on his chariot, the Lunch Lady with Spirit Leech and I believe Doom and Darkness, as well as her various bound spells and abilities, 4 units of Savage Orc Biggins, 3 units of Savage Orc Archers, a couple of units of Orc War Boys, and that Rock Lobber just for some early peppering to make him come forwards. Playing the Orcs and Goblins, as you can see, against his Lizardmen, he has a Feral Carnosaur, a Dread Saurian, which I've never even played against before, Mazdamundi on a Steg, and then there are a lot of Saurus Warriors with shields, and as we'll see later on, there's some Chameleon Skinks hanging like around here as well. So he's going to get his Feral Carnosaur in. That Dread Saurian is going to come straight for my lines. I'm going to try and focus it with some archer fire. Mazdamundi is hopefully going to take some stones to the face. And as you can see on the map up here, my Wolf Riders are wide out on the flanks at present. He then has some Cold One Spear Riders that come around on the flank. I'm going to counter them in a second with my Boar Riders, and I'm hoping that Grom unfortunately is turns out he's anti-infantry, not anti-large. I made a mistake here throwing him into the Dread Saurian early on. He should have been trying to take out these Boar Boys and give me advantage. But then I found some Chameleon Skinks with 2 units of the Wolf Riders, and then my Boar Boys here are going to both go into these Cold One Spear Riders in the back lines, and you can see I get a slight advantage off the charge, and then I'm going to get the second unit go charging in there as well. Grom is actually faring pretty well. I have lost a unit of archers to running away from that Dread Saurian already, and he's got another unit. This time he has got a unit through my lines in here, so I'm going to try and catch them with some Savage Orcs, the Lunch Lady, and Grom himself, just to protect those archers that I feel I'm really going to need for this Dread Saurian and this Feral Carnosaur. So he's ignoring my stone throwers at the moment, which is probably fair enough. They're not really doing a lot while shooting at Mazdamundi. My archers have rallied. I've absolutely destroyed his cavalry here with the 4 units of mine, of which only 1 really took any damage. So they're now available. We see the Lunch Lady and Grom between them do great damage in here against his unit of Saurus Warriors, and they take them down. The Feral Carnosaur goes berserk, and then as soon as that ends, it actually routs. And I've got my 2 units of archers here are just focusing that. Lunch Lady and a unit of Savage Orcs chasing down those Saurus Warriors, trying to get rid of them. And we see the second unit of Chameleon Skinks out there on the hill. So I'm going to grab my Wolf Riders on this side and see if I can't go over them. On the far left in the background, you can see his Chameleon Skinks have finally broken to my Wolf Riders over there as well, although I will forget about them for a moment. Grom there is chasing off the Feral Carnosaur. Mazdamundi kind of waddles over on his steg, I think, to try and stop that. I then make a bit of... I can't tell if this is a mistake or the correct play. His Carnosaur immediately rallies because I stopped chasing him. But I went after his Lord here. Probably should have just continued chasing off that Carnosaur. I'm now going to try and grab those Wolf Riders and bring them back into play. While these two Wolf Riders, one is going to chase off these Saurus Warriors, keep them going and hurting them, and the other is going to go after the Chameleon Skinks. In the center here, you see we've got the River Troll Hag. She's going to see if she can't go after... She's got a Spirit Leech down on Mazdamundi there. At this point, Mazdamundi is probably actually the lesser threat. I should have probably been just Spirit Leeching this Dreadsaurian every chance I've got. I just have so little to kill it at this point. My Archer core has been depleted quite badly. And between that Feral Carnosaur coming back and the Steg, Grom gets really hurt in this fight. So again, he probably should have been... One, I should have been cycle charging him to avoid getting him stuck in a combat like that, but also he should have been concentrating on infantry and rather than these big monster bash that I ended up fighting him in. The second Chameleon Skinks have actually done a lot better than the first ones on the far flank. As you see, my 2 units of Wolf Riders come back at about 50% strength. This Feral Carnosaur is determined to kill Grom. Turns out I definitely should have just chased it off and run it down. But it is gonna rout eventually. It's stuck out here on its own now without Mazdamundi's leadership, and I believe as I charge into it, it will break and the Wolf Riders will get to run it down. So the Lunch Lady here is going to go in onto Mazdamundi, which is a much better... As we can see, the Feral Carnosaur is broken and the Wolf Riders are going to happily just chase that as long as it needs to be chased. Grom rallies with the presence of his Wolf Riders around, and those two are going to come back into the fight now. The Mazdamundi is there just chewing on my final unit of Biggins. And these Wolf Riders, again, having now killed one unit off, are going to try and kill another off. I'm going to use the Lunch Lady just to stop this thing in its tracks. I think that's a bad use of Mither. That's really should be used when something's charging in, like that giant Dreadsaurian. I do get another Spirit Leech down on him. That's going to hurt Mazdamundi, and then I correctly decide that throwing in troops that are just going to die is a bad idea. So I've got a few archers left, but it's not going to be enough. This Dreadsaurian is now a really big problem. So I decide that my only real choice of action in this is to try kill Mazdamundi and hope that everything else ends up with such low leadership that I can just break it. He drops a banishment down here on my Wolf Riders. Grom is still here at this point. He's on low leadership, but he is slowly healing up with his regeneration. And as we see, Mazdamundi is now pretty hurt. I'm going to Spirit Leech him again. I've learned from my mistakes. This time I'm going to keep Grom away. I do have my last unit of Orc Biggins breaks. And eventually I do then engage the Lunch Lady into him. Although no, I'm actually vomiting on him at this point. So a little bit more damage. And Mazdamundi is... So a few archers coming back. A small unit of Boar Boys. So at this point, as it has been the entire battle, the balance of power is dead even. This was a real nail biter. There was really not much we could do. Unfortunately, I let Grom get caught here. I do try and get him out, but that damn Dreadsaurian is just going to run him down. He gets very stuck, and he takes so much damage from this thing. It is hideous, and there we go. He's instantly broken from the field now. He is not coming back. He apparently doesn't want to get eaten by a dinosaur. The River Troll Hag is going to then go after Mazdamundi, and I think it's going to be pretty soon that I do a little bit of a fast forward, because this becomes kind of ridiculous. So he does have a unit of chameleon skinks in here still. So my wolf riders spot them and are going to go straight into them. Mazdamundi is getting beaten over the head with the dinner lady's big sack of God knows what. So she actually does very good damage against Mazdamundi. I didn't realise the Dreadsaurian is chasing Grom off the field of battle, even though I'm pretty sure he was actually broken and that was completely unnecessary. But as you can see, Mazdamundi very low now, down to just 1,200 hit points from his massive usual stack on that ancient Stegodon. Down to 1,000, and he's wavering as he gets flank charged by the last of the Savage Orc Biggins. And there we go, we break Mazdamundi. Unfortunately, my goblins, my wolf riders did also break, but with some arrow boys left, I'm gonna get enough shots into his chameleon skinks to hopefully take them out as well. And he is literally down to just those units. He has Dreadsaurian, Mazdamundi routing, and pretty soon he will have those routing. I do have one unit of, or two units of goblin wolf riders that have come back, and there we see the Dreadsaurian is just right over in that corner. So I decide I need to take out these chameleon skinks, and then I need to kill Mazdamundi, who manages to rally himself again at this point, which is very frustrating. So the Dunch Lady is going after him. Okay, and we end up with a bit of a the slowest Benny Hill chase in the history of the game, as the River Troll Hag tries to chase down a wandering Stegodon. Meanwhile, the Dreadsaurian, that is exhausted at this point, has to walk the entire diagonal length of the battlefield to get back. So we're just going to fast forward through some of this. We do eventually break those chameleon skinks. They come back, then we break them again. So the chameleon skinks are now gone, and we can fast forward down here. So you see we've all run the entire length of the battlefield, and here we go. Mazdamundi breaks off the field with a charge from the Goblin Wolf Riders, and I end up against a half hit point Dreadsaurian. Probably my last bit of magic, I get another Soul Stealer off on him, but it's just not going to do enough damage. He has 9,000 hit points. It says the balance of power is dead even, but this Dreadsaurian, I just have nothing to kill it at this point. It's going to eat whatever it comes into contact with. We see my Orc boys just decide they've had enough. They leave. I've got some archers in the trees here, but he does spot them, so he's going to come after them next. My Wolf Riders just don't want any of this fight. Even running towards the thing makes them try and leave. So I'm going to try and intercept with the Hag. I don't have any way of slowing it down or stopping it. It's going to get into my archers, and they bolt. So we see they're going to leave as well. And at this point, the balance of power starts heading towards him. There is really not much more we can do. The Lunge Lady goes in. And then I make a mistake here. Throwing in these Wolf Riders was a terrible idea. It's just going to kill them. There was absolutely no need for that. The charge wasn't going to do enough to his leadership. That was a terrible idea. I needed them for the stability. And now it's just Dreadsaurian versus Dinner Lady, and unfortunately for her this time, she is the dinner. So, as I say, I'd never fought against a Dreadsaurian before. I had no idea just how difficult to take down this thing was going to be. And there we go, she routs, and that's the game. That was close as anything. Great set of games against J-Flash. Thanks to him for playing against me. As you can see, we were both pretty decimated by this. The Orc and Goblin leadership may be letting me down a little bit. But yeah, that Dreadsaurian, 269 kills, and really carried him in that game. Mazdamundi killed quite a lot of stuff as well on his Ancient Stegodon. Everything else I dealt with pretty well. One of his units of chameleon skinks did fairly well, but all those kills are just the goblin wolf riders. Again, they were supposed to be archers, which maybe would have helped me out more. I could have literally just kited that Dreadsaurian for the duration of their ammo. Um, Maybe that would have been better, but yeah, great games, great fun, still learning, still forgetting things. Got to keep track of my units a bit better. Definitely still Lord use is my biggest bugbear right now. I'm very much failing in that respect. I've misused my lords repeatedly in all my games. The Tomb Kings was almost certainly my best performance, although it was also the one that he made the most mistakes in. I've discovered that I really do hate fighting Skaven. Just don't know how to deal with them at the moment. So I gotta go maybe do some research into that. But yeah, hopefully a few more games coming up in the next day. And until next time, enjoy your Total War, and I will see you then.